Okay, guys, so the first thing I thought I might do, those of you who are interested, for the people on the call, and there's about 50 people that registered for this webinar, we ran this same webinar last week, and on the left you can see the culture of the group. And if we consolidate all the IDs that are attending today, you can see the culture on the right-hand side. So there's similarities in terms of there's a strong verifier dominance, but it's a little different in the complete drive today. But basically, we've got representation of all 8 directions of the different drives. And I just think this is a really smart thing to keep in mind when you are working virtually in groups like this. For those of you who have the benefit of knowing the ID of the teams that you're working with, this really does help, because those of us who are familiar with ID, the minute we see what the dominance of the group is, you have a sense of how you might then adjust the communication and even the content in order to accommodate the group. So I think it's just a really smart thing to do, to check in on the ID of each individual, certainly the people that are likely to be more dominant in a meeting, but also the group culture, and just have a sense of what you're working with. This is a protocol for how we start every meeting, whether it's internally or whether it's with our clients, just taking stock of who's who in the zoo, as we call it, knowing the individuals. I've got a list here of everybody, and I've already been through it to see everyone's IDs and just have a good sense of, if people are talking, where they might be coming from, so I hear them differently, knowing their ID, and then of course the group culture as well. Now, any questions? I'm just going to pause for a second when I ask for questions, because you might be on mute and then you just need to take yourself off mute, or put a question in the chat and I'll keep my eye on that for me. Okay, let's zoom along. So this is the first thing I wanted to cover. This particular slide, which many of you I know have seen before, it's what we call our peak performance indicator. And it's basically representing what life is like when you're either in stride with your ID, which is that green arrow in the center heading north there, or what happens if you are out of stride, being pulled to the right or to the left, out of stride with your ID. And so being at your best means that you are in stride with your ID, with who you are, and you get all of those things at the top of the chart. So your very best performance, which means you make your best decisions. Things come more easily. There's actually a lot of research being done right now on the whole concept of being in flow, or as athletes call it, being in the zone. And what we've been able to show through our research is that that occurs most perfectly when you are in stride with your ID. And so what we're talking about today is how to be on that green arrow at your very best, even when you're working virtually and aren't as connected to your colleagues, for example, as what you normally might be. Now, whilst there are protocols for how to run virtual meetings, like things like have your videos on, we're not going to talk about the generic protocols today. We're going to link it more to your ID. So this is about specific IDs. What I do want to call out for you is that if you are going to be at your best, and particularly if you're in a leadership position, we've also done research that shows that the most effective leadership occurs when you come from a place of an 8 out of 10 or more. So if on a scale of 0 to 10, someone said to you, 10 out of 10 is like you are in the zone. You are flying, shining. It's like you've got the Midas touch for whatever you're doing. And a 1 out of 10, you can't even get out of bed. It's like, I just push this off as much as I can. What's the number that comes up for you? And I'm not, because of the time constraints, I'm not going to go around the room today and get everyone's number. But I can assure you, when we do this in a team, this is one of the most insightful components of the whole workshop that we do for a leader, to get a sense of where is their team at. I can tell you that when people are at a really low score, there's normally significant health issues going on, or they might be like a flight risk for the organization. And the people that come up with a score of 8, 9, or 10, and 10 is possible. In fact, 10 is one of those numbers that when you really are a 10, you can't contain yourself. It's like you're just bursting with energy you want to share with the group. But if you're going to be effective and at your best, you want to be at an 8 or more out of 10. And so what we're going to cover today, if you just do that little quick exercise on yourself and you go, okay, what's my number? So for me right now, it's I'm a 9. And if you did that and you said, well, I'm a 7. Well, how do you get to an 8? And so when we go through the strategies, listen for the tips and tricks that might help you get to an 8 or more out of 10, because that's what's going to affect your motivation. And when you're in a leadership position, you want to come across as highly motivated all the time, because of the very last bullet point I shared there is about the shadow that you cast. Leaders cast a shadow. And I'm forever amazed at how in an organization of 50, 60, 100,000 people, the leader casts an incredible influence over the rest of the team. But if you're also going to be sustainable and, you know, get through times like this, if you're going to make your best decisions, if you're going to be effective at influencing people, all of that comes so much more easily, and I would argue would almost be impossible to do if you are at a much lower score. So you want to challenge yourself to be able to get to an 8 out of 10 or more every single day. And if you feel yourself being pulled off track, then use the strategies we're about to go through to get you back on track. Any questions at this point?
Paul?
Great.
You hear that you have to be an 8. Sometimes being a leader, you need to just be genuine. And if you are a 6, you need to own it and deal with it because they're going to recognize it anyway.
Yes. So I'm just saying, don't stay there. You know, if you can do something, you'd be like, of course, be honest and authentic. But if there's something significant going on, I mean, we're human beings, so you can have down days. But if there's something that you can do using the strategies that we have here, like and you know, you've done this too, I know, when you've had even some of the biggest challenges going on, at least by knowing about your ID and some of the strategies, you can then do things very intentionally to get yourself back to a great score. But you're absolutely right. Like if I said I was a 9 out of 10 and I was not coming across like that, you'd read it in a heartbeat, you know. So authenticity absolutely is the key. Thanks, Greg. Guys, let's move into the drives. So here's what I'll show you on the verified drive. So just have a quick zoom through these bullet points here, that you need to feel professional. So even though you're working from home, if you're a strong verifier, you still need to dress and set yourself up to feel professional. You need to feel on top and in control of your day. And there's a different way you need to approach that when you're working virtually. What else? You know, watching out for your own skepticism because of the way you can come across when people don't see you face to face, even sort of making jokes about things. Sometimes people can't even tell that you're making a joke and you might think you're just being sarcastic, but they think you're being serious. So you've got to watch for some of those things and how you come across. And then, you know, your default is to solve problems on your own. And so what you've got to be careful of is reaching out to work with your team because they're not just automatically going to walk past your office or past you in, you know, in a collaborative space like normally might have been the case. So these are the bullets to be aware of as a verifier to get in stride and be at that 8 or 10 out of, you know, 8 or more out of 10. So can I just ask anyone who is a strong verifier, like I know Ian, you're an 8 in verify, but you know, if I think of some of these about, for example, and anyone can comment on these, anyone who's got this strong drive, or if you just have questions about it, you know, if you want to feel professional and you think about what you do in order to do that working from home, what are some of the specific things that you do to make that happen?
Well, I can certainly jump in there, Paul. I mean, I think given that, you know, a lot of us at LinkUp have been working from home for a long while, but one of the things that I do in particular is I make sure that whatever I'm wearing for the day is different to what I wear at a weekend. So in other words, it's, even though I might be sort of dressing down slightly to what I wear at the office, it's shirts, it's trousers, it's even like it's what I wouldn't necessarily wear on the weekend. So I don't sit here in a tracksuit and, you know, t-shirt and joggers. I actually have a collared shirt, you know, trousers on, and which I'm sure you're all pleased to know, and it basically have a work dress just exactly the same as if I was jumping in the car and driving to an office.
Right. That's really good, and it's about how you feel, isn't it? Because verifiers need to feel professional, and you know, it's a different work environment from home than what it is. Even kids running around can be really distracting. Like, I don't feel professional with all of that distraction in the background. So, okay, what do you need to do to make the adjustment so you do feel more professional?
Yeah, just a comment here we got from Carol, and she's basically, after all these years of working from home, she's always dressing for work, even if it's casual, cleaning the office. It's actually very specific for her as well. Another verifier.
Right. Excellent. Thanks, Carol. All right. Anybody else? Any questions or anyone else relate to these bullets? What about, does anyone do anything in order to stay on top and in control? Is there something you do differently when you're working at home and working virtually to what you would do had you gone to to your normal place of work? You think about how you start your day, for example.
Yeah, well, I imagine they're right in front of me. They can see everything I'm doing. So I don't play card games on the computer or doodle. I imagine they're in the room with me, and therefore I'm as authentic as I can be.
Okay. That's a good one for the authenticate drive, Greg.
Gee, where'd that come from?
Okay, if I compare it, for example, if you go to the avoid verify drive, so here's, people who have a natural instinct to collaborate. That's what this drive is good. So the verifier, the first thing that happens with the verifier is, right, how do I solve this problem myself? A verifier's instinctive reaction is, who do I know to help with this? Who do I reach out to? Who do I collaborate with? And so having someone to bounce with is really important in order for you to be at your best. So finding something or someone to react to, especially if you're stuck on things, or if your motivation dips, that's important. Having those people in your network, this person is a safe person to reach out to. And the reason I say safe is because you want people who aren't going to be critical of you or in any way, interrogating or judging or making you feel demeaned. You want people who it's just safe to reach out and collaborate with. That sense of team. So when you're not having a team around you all day, doing the things that foster that sense of team. So I know some groups where they'll, at lunchtime, they just have a Zoom call and it's an open Zoom chat for whoever wants to just jump on and sort of share the lunchtime together. So they feel like they're still a team, and if that will be more important to some people than others, but if that's a need for you and you notice that that's affecting your motivation or your engagement, set something up like that makes a difference. And I will call out this last one, and I'm very interested for any avoid verifiers on the call here today to comment on this one with any examples, is really listening even more intently to your sense of knowing. Because what we're getting feedback on already is with so much material out there in the world right now with the news and social media, for example, on all of the different facts and opinions on the coronavirus, for example, and how long all this is going to take and how we need to set ourselves up and what help is available and how you should do things, it can be very confusing or at least overwhelming. And at the end of the day, you go, okay, well, if I listen to my sense of knowing, what do I need to do? And I'm curious as to whether anyone's already had an experience of that or an example of that they can bring this to life for the team. Any of our void verifiers?
Yeah, this is Patricia. I can jump in on that one. Actually, on all of them, but on that one specifically, I have really limited my time that I'm watching the things that are going on, and my gut is telling me that there's really nothing that I can do about coronavirus, but there are things that I can do here at home, in the community, virtually, things like that. So my gut's telling me there's not a whole lot I can do about it. So let's focus on what we can do and what we can take care of. And really, trying to, like, I've been having virtual, actually, cocktail parties in the evenings with folks. And we're working on a lot of initiatives so that talking things through, it's not like when you're in the office, you can just jump into somebody's cube or office, but, giving me a white piece of paper to talk to like kind of get my thoughts down on, and I'm not going to get any thoughts down. But so I'm reaching out to colleagues or, the other people on the team just to say, hey, let's get together real quickly and brainstorm a couple of thoughts. And even if the thought isn't the thought I'm looking for, it stimulates me enough where I can actually get to the actual point that I'm trying to get to.
Right. That's really good. Thanks, Patricia. Anybody else?
So it's not on the knowing thing. Can you hear me okay?
You can.
So for me, I'm a 4 in verify. There's something about the amount of data that's coming in. So, Patricia, you mentioned it in terms of coronavirus data, but also there's a project I'm working on where someone just keeps sending me like long emails, right? Like just emails and emails and emails. And I actually just get them and I can't even look at them. Like I actually just they go to the bottom of the pile because there's so much data in them. And so it's a reminder of when you're working virtually, sometimes it feels easier, especially maybe if you are verified, to just like type up all the data and send it to someone. But for me, when I get that and I have been wanting to put it off, I'm now just picking up the phone and talking to the person specifically who keeps sending me all the data to say, okay, you keep sending me all this. Can we talk it through? Because otherwise for the first week, I just ignored it, which was not a good approach because then they didn't get anything they needed from me, but it was too much for me. And so I realized I just had to start picking up the phone and talking some of that through as opposed to just pushing the data aside because it was too much.
Beautiful. That's a great example, Trace, and I think it's very validating for other people to hear that and sort of go, okay, so there's nothing wrong with me that I need to do that, you know? It's just normal for people that are wired like that. And when other people around you understand that about you, of course, it makes it so much easier. Okay, let's move on to the next drive, which is the authenticate drive. So I probably should have done this earlier, and I apologize, but a quick synopsis of the authenticate drive. I should have described the other drives to you as well. I'm assuming everyone knows it, which on this call, probably a lot of people do know their ID quite well. But, you know, the authenticate drive is all about having a congruence between what's on the inside and what's on the outside of you, what you're thinking and feeling and idealizing or, you know, processing, and what's on the outside in terms of the tangible outputs. And so when you think about that drive of needing the congruency, of needing to see physical output, of even just needing to be physical, that's where these bullet points came from. So when you're sitting, for example, on a call at a meeting, in order for you to engage and be able to be at your best, it's like, okay, what do you want me to do? And not just do, but that can be useful to the team, because the overwhelming sort of need there is to be really useful, personally useful. So it might be a role for the meeting. It might be like calling out rat holes or keeping the minutes or capturing the various, you know, parking lot items, whatever they might be. But it might also be that you decide to capture some notes that could just be about how to make the meetings better in future, you know, and share that as like coaching feedback for the team afterwards. But just having something that you can task yourself with doing in order to make a real contribution to the team is a way of staying engaged, not just wandering off. As Greg said before, even just picturing that, you know, the people are in the room with you and having a different picture, which is a driver in your own mind. Those are simple things like that second bullet point, create a clear picture of what you're trying to build, right? And who's in the room and all of that. Making sure you've got quality resources around you. So if you've got, you know, that could just be the way the room's set up. It could be your internet. It might be the computer you're using, whatever it is. But have you got the right tools around you to create the workspace that makes you feel that you're producing work that's consistent with who you are as a person? And then, of course, the last one's a huge one about getting physical. And whether that's literally taking breaks and going outside where it's more real and walking around, or taking calls outside like that, or just standing up and having a desk that's a stand-up desk. What can you do to be more physical? Might even be meetings. You know, in Australia, we're allowed to at least go for exercise outside, and as long as there's only one other person. So if you have a meeting with somebody, you can go for a walk and talk at the same time, and that's sort of playing to that need as well. So these are all tailored to helping an authenticator be more in stride at that 8 out of 10 or more, working virtually. Any examples where people are doing this? Like we had Greg's before about the picture. What about somebody else? Elena, you're a strong authenticator. What about for you? What do you do along these lines?
Yeah, I like that. I really am. Oh, sorry. I think my connection is a little bit unstable. But it's absolutely important to me. First of all, the physical movement is massive. I schedule my appointment.
Elena, you sound really distant.
So I have 5 minutes between. And the physical space, making it so that it feels like a workspace is also really important to me. And even in my off time, doing things that feel like they're useful. I organized my parents' cupboards yesterday, and I was like, I have done something useful. It's easier for me to sit for a while and work quietly. So those are all things that really work for me.
Interesting. Good examples. Thank you. Anybody else?
I think having a list, Paul, of things to do outside. I think there's going to be a lot of gardens and yards and jobs around the house getting done. So to physically go and knock something off is pretty important.
So just talk to that for a minute, Richard. So you're saying that if you're working inside, just going and doing something outside what does that do to you? Does that make you able to concentrate more when you come back inside, or what happens?
Absolutely. And it's like Ilona said, it was a sense of achievement. It doesn't matter whether it was just mowing the lawn or something. It's far better than doing the office work or working on the computer. I don't know. It just is a bit more real, I suppose, that it did achieve something. The place looks better and neater and tidier. Yeah, I like it.
You can come over and get a sense of achievement on my lawn anytime you like, or get a sense of achievement out of my car.
Well, it's interesting. I related to our kids recently that in high school, I only just recalled this, that one of the rewards you got for getting all your maths or English done early was you got to be able to go outside and go and mow the lawn on the oval. And this is with a hand mower, a push mower. And I used to love it. Think of the size of a push mower going around a whole football oval. And I would just, race through my maths so that I could get out there on the mower.
There you go. Well, good examples.
That needs therapy.
I think it's good for people to realise what it does to you mentally to be able to then work more effectively when you're back indoors or, back at the office. So, good examples. Thanks, guys. Let's talk about the avoid authenticate.
Wait. I've been being really good.
You have been good.
I've been good not speaking up. Two things. One is I need to know what the outcome of this meeting is, really measurably, observably. Why am I spending my time here? It's probably a combination of the pink down as well. But for me, it's the what are we here to do that we can't do separately. What we're all meeting, what's going to be the outcome that we couldn't have achieved had we not been all together. So that's a big one for me. Otherwise, I'm watching TV. Does that make sense?
It does. I'm watching Ilona and Tracy's heads nodding profusely. So that's obviously a huge thing for you guys as well. Yes.
And the other thing, just more logistically right now, I'm dying to know IDs of everyone's face there, and I have no chart. If there a way to set this up so that we have a team chart as well. We have the culture chart, but I don't know everyone's ID, and I know my clients won't remember everyone's ID necessarily, although they'll probably have a team chart from previous stuff, but that's just something that I'm.
Yeah, it's like Greg, unfortunately, as part of the protocol of doing a public webinar where privacy is different for everybody, we can't have that for a
right.
Whereas when it's a private in-team, equivalent type webinar or workshop.
Yeah. I'd make sure all my guys had a copy. Yeah, okay, cool.
And one thing that we do a lot when we're jumping on calls is we actually put our ID in our name. So it'd be Sarah 6672.
Cool.
And so it would be right there. And so that's a good internal protocol as well.
Great.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, let's move to the avoid authenticate drive. So this is the avoid authenticate drive is all about the relationships, the feelings, the perceptions, what's under the surface, and dealing with that side of it. So this can be hard for an avoid authenticator who can't get to sort of, you can read between the lines on some things, but when you can't read the body language, as it's also challenging for an authenticator who can't see people, but it's different. So making time to connect with people and feel like you've still got a relationship with them. So you think about a lot of now either video calls or telephone calls, and you've got your reason for calling, which is typically task oriented, but it's consciously making the time at the start. So even if you're an authenticator, but the person you're talking to is an avoid authenticator, you still make a point of saying, so how are you? How are you dealing with, everything going on? How's your family? Take the time to connect. And on that deeper level, it's not just a case of, how was your weekend? Great. Okay, good. Let's get down to business. That's not connecting and building that relationship. But, tell me about what you got up to. How's your family doing? How did so-and-so go from that, that event last week? Tell me about that. So there's a real sense of building the relationship and connecting, and that sense of, it comes across like a, true caring about the person. That needs to be much more intentional, because it doesn't happen as automatically as when people walk past your cube or your office or something, or you pass them in the corridor, and you can just sort of have that catch-up chat while you're sitting there, making coffee, whatever it might be. I mean, you need to create time for that. And I think I'm noticing when people are working on email a lot more, and they're also, you know, coming onto a call with intention to get tasks done. You watch how most calls start, they can be very bland with getting straight into the task. And so if you are on a call with Avoid Authenticates, that's a neat protocol for how to start and keep them really engaged in stride. And then of course, the last bullet, or the third bullet point is they're saying, well, you know, there's discussion points that aren't always comfortable having one-on-one, having in the group. And so making a point of catching up with people afterwards or even beforehand to talk more privately about an issue, so you then feel more comfortable to share it publicly, virtually, is another strategy that makes sense. But you know, you have to call out what you're doing, because you don't want people to think that you're talking behind their backs, or you're not. You know, we talk about with our trust protocols, have the same conversation in the room as outside the room. You don't want to be seen as, you know, violating that protocol. If you just talk to, and I think that's one of the challenges for the Avoid Authenticates, is it's not always obvious that that's what you're doing. So you need to be more explicit about the intention behind what you're doing. Even as simple as saying to somebody, I was just joking. Because you know, when you make a joke about something, you're smiling, but they can't see you smiling. You need to call that out and make the things that in a live meeting or exchange would be more obvious. You need to be, you know, much more explicit to call those things out now. And I think this last bullet point is really important, is reframing the definition of ideal, because it is different now. Like if the ideal before was that we could do, you know, I could just go and see someone, you know, and we could sort this out face to face. And it's frustrating that we don't get to go and talk face to face, or catch up for coffee, or do whatever we used to do at lunchtime, or go out and get my shopping done at lunchtime, whatever. Yep, that was the ideal back in the pre-world. But now, so that you're not continuously frustrated and feeling like you're in a place of compromise, reframing your definition of ideal is an important way, and frankly, really necessary, in order that you can be at that 8 or more out of 10. I'm curious if anyone's already done that. And, you know, even if you didn't do it intentionally, where in order to, you know, work more effectively from home, what was ideal before is now compromised, and so you've reframed that. Or you might want to speak to some of the other bullets as well, but particularly interested around reframing. Any of our Avoid Authenticate people relate to that?
I think they're waiting for the right time to speak.
That's right.
Nah.
Richard, we're actually going to take it offline and have that one-to-one conversation afterwards.
Okay, good.
You know, I talked with someone the other day who they had a frequency. They were out visiting clients, and well, they wanted to visit clients. They said, well, I have this rhythm about how I stay in touch with my clients, and we get to meet face to face, you know, to build the relationship. And that they had a particular rhythm for how they did that. And they said, I've had to really reframe my whole approach to, you know, my customer relationships, because they're saying that for the next 6 months, I'm not getting to do that. And then, you know, running workshops like what we do, you know, they were like, well, we can't run face-to-face workshops anymore. And those sorts of issues would be so much more effective if we could do them face-to-face. Yep, that would be ideal, but that's no longer ideal or possible. So we've got to reframe, how do we do that now? And that's my new ideal. That's what we're talking about there. All right, any questions? We good in the chat, Ian?
Yep, all good, Paul.
Okay, thank you. So guys, let's move on now to the complete drive then. So the complete drive is all about having everything fitting together, working in harmony, all integrated, operating smoothly, and on track with, you know, the way it's designed to be. That's the complete drive. So when everything is on track, running smoothly, harmonious, that's when you guys are in stride. So when you think about the classic here is everyone is sort of going, well, it's not normal. With all the changes that have happened, it's not normal. We're waiting for things to get back to normal. And in the meantime, what's the zone they're in? Are they in a holding pattern, or are they in a new normal? Is the future state going to be the way it used to be? Is it going to be a hybrid of today and yesterday? Is it going to be altogether different? There's a lot of innovation coming out of what's happening now. Like think of healthcare and education. are they really going to go back completely to where they used to be? I don't think so. I think there's going to be some type of holding on to what we've got today, the new state as well as the old state. So, you know, it's a challenge for the completers who, in order to work with change, have to get their new routines, new structures, their new normal all set up. And then it's about how they get settled into all of that and get started each and every day. And when you've got kids running around that you weren't used to having, and, you know, a whole lot of dynamics that are totally different, it's very challenging. So I'd be interested to hear from some of the completers in a minute on what you've done to establish your new normal. And, you know, are there specific changes you've made? And particularly around, one of the ones that's come up a lot from questions with clients is, how do you juggle it when you've got kids and distractions all through the day, and before you go to work and, you know, get away from all of that, or they go to preschool or go to school and you've had this constant break, but now you've got kids that have to be supervised as well as getting work done. How do you balance all of that and still have harmony? More the point, have it in some level of structure, routine. It's challenging for people. So if anyone's already made some progress there, it'd be wonderful for you to share that with the group here today. Of course, you know, getting all of those people organised, just talked about that. Checking in daily to ensure the plan that you're working on is still the same, because when you're not working side by side with colleagues, you'll be on track with the plan that was agreed to several days ago. But if you're in an avoid complete world, which is very true of a lot of people, you know, in senior positions, they're probably not on the same plan you are anymore, and staying aligned is one of the biggest challenges of working virtually. So whether that's regrouping through the week or even sometimes through the day, and then when you get pulled off track through all the different interruptions that occur through the day, how you regroup, they're the challenges and the things you need to do to then really honour this driving you to have a track and stay true to it. So can we hear from our completers? Anyone here, particularly if you've already made some changes that are working for you in this concept of the new normal?
Can I jump in there, Paul?
Oh, Krista, great. Thank you.
So I don't have any kids at home. I do have a 17 improvised husband who is without work at the moment. It's interesting for me because my normal is working from home. So my new normal is that also Geraint is here. And I think, like, you know, many people, we have a very small space. So, you know, I have no separate office. We've basically got, you know, a bathroom, kitchen, and then one other room, which is, you know, it's nice but small. And so the interruption piece is very challenging. And, you know, when you have this sort of little ball of energy walking around. And I'm trying to hone in on something that is different. And I think one of the things is that one of my challenges is, even if I sort of look away from my screen and, you know, to just think, that's perhaps seen as a cue to, oh, we can talk now because you're not working. So one sort of physical way that I can sort of signal, no, I'm still in work, is actually just to keep my earphones in. Okay. And so it's like I can think uninterrupted, but it's a sign that it's still work. And I think the second thing that I would flag would be more about again to do with the office space, is that, you know, there has to come a point, and I do get nagged on it, when I really have to completely close everything down, you know, and put the computer away. And so that is right, work is over now, to make that really sort of separate distinction that yes, you can totally interrupt me, right. You know, and that's great. And I think that's really important, you know, relationship wise.
Thanks, Krista. Thank you. Good luck with the kid.
On the good news though, you know, the breakfast and lunch have gone gourmet now that the chef has nowhere else to cook, so that's great.
Don't mind being interrupted for that. Any other completers have anything you can share around what you've done that could be helpful to others in terms of restructuring, getting your new normal?
I'm not a completer, but I live with one, with an 8. And she has a technique where she gets real clear in her head what's not changed and what's not chaotic, you know, what's already working, what's the routine we can count on, she gets back a good home base of, okay, don't have to worry about that, don't have to tuck that in. And she'll talk to me about that, you know, like Luda's doing this and this is happening there, and that's, so she gives herself a clearer radar screen of which plane she has to land and which she can have already landed.
Okay. Okay. So she's focusing on what's not changing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Greg. Anybody else?
Hey, Sarah here. So like on the opposite end, kind of what Krista said about how you put away your computer and you're done for the day. On the opposite end, when you start working from home, it's so easy to start constantly in the morning, you know, like I'll lay in bed and be checking my emails before I've made my cup of coffee or whatever, right? And so consciously making the decision of like, no, I'm going to feed the dogs, I'm going to make my coffee, and then I can settle in and properly give everything attention instead of kind of giving half responses on my phone before I've fully woken up, just because there's this thing now where you're just constantly working.
I think it's really important, really important. A subtle thing I would call out for the benefit of any of you to even share with others for completers is this, the routine of how you get started. You know, when you think about people going to work, there's almost this automatic routine of, you know, there's the traveling to work, and then I get my coffee from this place and I get the newspaper over here, and then I sit on the train or I'm in the traffic and I go through and even without trying to have a routine, there just is a routine on how you get started, but it's like how you take the baby steps to, you know, the crawling, walking, running sort of development of your day. And even when you get to your desk, people go, well, I get to my desk and then I, you know, put everything down and then I'll go to the bathroom and I'll just tidy up, or then I'll check my emails and my voicemails and get another coffee or say hi to people. There's like this little process you go through, but typically it's about a 20-minute routine. There's even time at the end of the day to drive home or travel home, and there's decompression time to change states. That's all part of it. And I think those two bookends of the day, the how you get started and the getting settled, that routine for getting settled, and then how you finish off, they're really important to replace at least those two parts really quite intentionally. No different to an athlete. You know, an athlete will tell you that before I go out on the track or in a pool and compete, here's the routine I go through for like my warm-up phase. And I think when you're working from home, it's so easy to miss that. And as Sarah was just saying, sort of start dabbling in work while you're eating your toast or getting out of bed. And when you don't do the warm-up, it has a massive effect on the productivity for the rest of the entire day. So I would really encourage any completer to be very intentional about what is that 20-minute process for building up the, you know, the warming up, as it were, into your day for when you then get started. And equally at the end of the day, what's your decompression routine? One of the things I notice, and a lot of people are commenting on this right now, the number of families that are going out for walks as a family at the end of the day, it's absolutely beautiful to see. I saw one of them the other day with a couple of glasses of wine walking along outside. But, you know, it's just really lovely to see people taking the time as a family. But I'm sure they've got to a point where they go, we need to change state and shift from work zone to, you know, family time. So let's start that with what we used to spend on a train. Let's go out as a family and walk around for half an hour or whatever and, you know, change state. I think those two bookend components are really important.
Hey Paul, it's Tanya here. I just wanted to jump in and add something that we've been doing with our family at home. So my husband and I are both working at home now. We've got our 3 kids here who are doing homeschool. So they're 8, 6 and a 3-year-old as well. But to start the day for the kids in the morning, we've been getting them to walk out the back door, around the side gate, and then back in the front door. So they're starting school for the day. So it's like changing their mindset that they've moved from home and into school for the day. And I said to my 3-year-old this morning, so I wouldn't get interrupted on this call, I said, I'm going to work now, have a good day. And I left the room so he thinks I've gone to work, and I've shut the door to just hide away for an hour. And my husband's on duty, so there'll be no interruptions. But it's all about for us, like changing the mindset. And then we do the same at the end of the day. We always do something as a family together, whether that be go for a walk or play basketball in our driveway or something. So then we shift back into family time.
That's beautiful.
That's
great examples, Tanya. Absolutely brilliant. I love that. So practical and very intentional, you know, to change it. And you feel like it's really working?
Yeah, it's working much better because I think it's hard now that work and home and school and everything has just blended into one. So we're just trying to create a bit of distinction between each.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I'm not sure how many of you are working with teams, but with our one of our teams, we use a platform called Asana for people to communicate, and all of the technologies are adding in new things for productivity with all this going on, and they've added something called sprints. So everyone has like weekly sprints of what needs to get done. And our team, where we used to have a weekly check-in, are now starting a daily check-in. And so to your point, Paul, every morning, first thing in the morning, there's this 15-minute check-in to make sure everyone's aligned. And I think that's good for all the different drives. I'm actually a void complete, so I don't necessarily want to go to all those, but I will.
Good on you, Jen. Thank you for sharing that. That's great. And that is something I do know a lot of teams do now, having these daily check-ins. And I would say for some completers, that might even be the start of that's in their day. So there might even be something they need to do beforehand. Like Tanya was just saying, maybe you go and do the walk around the house with the kids and everything, and then get into a meeting like that. But that may still not be full on into your day. That might be the next warm-up phase, but they're very, very good examples of how you put this to work. And Jen, it's nice to finally meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks.
All right, let's move on. I'm aware of the time, guys. So let's move on to the avoid complete drive. So here, where you need a lot of variety and, your energy, avoid completes have all their energy at the start of something and need, and it runs out very quickly. So keeping yourself juiced by lots of variety is really key here. So you've got a couple of issues. One is working in short bursts to keep yourself energized, changing things up when you're in sitting at the same desk all day and you don't get to run to different meeting rooms or out seeing different clients, and you're just in that one place using the same video screen or computer screen all the time, same phone, same earbuds. There's a lot of sameness, so you need to maybe more intentionally bring the variety. But also there's a big issue about alignments, because when you're not people don't just sort of bump into you to remind you of things or fill you in on things. It's so easy. I think one of the big challenges organizations are going to face, and they already had an issue with alignment, but I think it's going to be really challenging if they don't do things like the daily check-ins to stay aligned, not just on the work, but to stay aligned on the people as well. Like, where is everyone at? How are they going? What's working? What's not working? This alignment piece is going to be big. So I don't know if anyone's already found in working from home for the last, what has it been, 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks for a little bit more for some, whether there's been a shift for you on the variety piece and the alignment piece. Has anyone already noticed that or has started to do some things intentionally to address that? Thinking of maybe our strongest avoid completes, people like Alona, Tracy, Carolyn, Tara.
Yeah, this is Tara. I'm a 2 on complete. So I definitely avoid it. I always have been a change up locations person. And I actually have found this shift to be positive because I had always felt I had to stay in my normal place so people knew I was at my desk and they saw the same background every time. And now everybody is sort of so open to wherever you are. I've been taking meetings on the back patio and in my kitchen and all sorts of places. So it's been, to me, like I get to lean further into my avoid complete. Okay. The working in short bursts, I have found that it leads me to my refrigerator. I walk down to the refrigerator, but I just find that I just do it without even knowing I'm doing it. And then I'm standing there looking in there and grabbing a cookie or whatever. And so I'm going to be one of those people that gains a few pounds, I think.
Okay. Thank you, Tara. Nice to see you on the call too. Thanks.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah.
Paul, I'm curious. I'm actually having the opposite experience as a 2, and it's quite stressful. So I'd be curious in your input. So, I mean, I'm required to move my desk at least 8 times a day because of where internet is, and the 3 kids are on their Zoom meetings or have class meetings or have a workout scheduled or have, like, I am required to move 6 to 8 times a day my location. And it's actually like my ability to get anything finished is causing a lot of stress. It's interesting because I'm finding what I need. I almost feel like an 8 incomplete because I'm like, I just need uninterrupted time. I just need to know when I'm going to get some time to get stuff done. I just need to like not have somebody interrupt me every 5 minutes because I'm feeling like, you know, similar to Tanya, I have three kids at home who I'm homeschooling while trying to get work done. So I think my avoid complete like version of how I manage that is to time block stuff. Like, okay, I know I can from 3 to 5 now. I've just said I'm going to work from 3 to 5. No, that's uninterrupted time, but the other times can be, I'm really having a time block to try to manage it because it's actually not, I thought as a 2, I'd be like, this is great, but it's like not good. So I'm curious if you have any thoughts.
Well, the first thing that occurs to me is you're not doing it by choice, you know, and so when you don't have choice and options, it's almost like you're being forced to comply, which is and boxed in. That's the part that is always going to be a aggravation for an avoid complete. But it really is interesting. I think it's great that you called that out. That in the same situation, the same instinct, like a 2 incomplete, one can be thriving, like Tara was saying. And then for you, because of slightly different dynamics with having to move, I think it's the having to move. If you're doing it by choice, it would probably have a completely different energy about it. So the time blocks make sense. I don't know, I'm trying to think off the top of my head, how do you switch it so it doesn't feel like I have to? Because that was my detection was, my instinct was that the frustration is that this is being done to you. If you had more choice around it, it would probably diffuse some of that energy.
I'll think about that. I think that's a good insight.
One of the things I'm doing, Tracy, because I am really like, I love working on the patio, and is I actually am acting as if I'm on a business trip. So all of my stuff to work is in my work travel bag, and I just carry it around with me as if I'm on a trip seeing many clients. And so that strategy has worked really well for me because I never find, oh no, that thing, it's upstairs and I'm down here and all of that. So I don't know if that might be helpful, but
it actually sounds a little more fun too, because it actually like sounds kind of funny.
Yeah.
I like it.
That is so good. I love those sort of strategies because these are the practical things that will really help other people as well, guys. Good on you for sharing them. Let's move along in the interest of time. Let's talk about the improvised drive. So, this is the drive that's all about the energy, the animation, the passion, having things more electric and exciting. So there's a number of bullet points in here to make this, bring this to life for the improvisers. But here's what you need to look at. Firstly is the workspace. Have you got workspace that is really, have you got workspace that is uplifting and energizing for you? It could be the color, the location. Like if you could be facing a wall when you'd rather be facing outside, or it might be the other way around because a certain way you face it might provide a glare on the camera. Or on the screen, and you go, well, that's not going to be good. I want to project the right brand out, to my audience. So I make the change. So that's more positive. But thinking about the workspace and whether or not that's energizing. So the simple question I'd ask is your workspace an 8 out of 10 or more? And if not, what's got to shift so that it becomes that? And anywhere, if you then walk outside to sit outside on a chair somewhere, is that an 8 out of 10? Whatever you need to do, is it certain music you need to have on in the background, lighting, colors, clothes, anything that makes it more uplifting for you. Then I'd also be clear about the people you're talking to. Are they energizing or de-energizing? We all know with the minute your phone rings, you see a name pop up on that screen, you have a reaction that is either an 8 out of 10 or more or not. And trying to design your day so that you've got sprinkled in there people that are fun to interact with, that uplift your energy is really important. Making sure that what you're working on, it's very easy to get so task oriented, go from meeting to meeting and meeting on these tasks. So what are you doing to interject things that are more exciting for you, or even in those meetings, setting them up so that you're able to make them more strategic, more innovative, more challenging, so that you can play more at your best. And then I think the last bullet point that I have here is for the virtual meetings, it's really interesting for improvisers because on the one hand, you want to engage and interact and you're often quick off the cuff to contribute. On the other hand, you don't want to be the person that is dominating the meeting and particularly builds a brand as, they're always sucking the oxygen in that meeting. So brand is important to an improviser. So it's like doing a dance between contributing your ideas, contributing your examples so that it's uplifting and energizing and valuable to the team. And on the other hand, you could play a facilitation role where you're asking questions or inviting others to contribute. Like, you know, hey, so-and-so, you've got an example of that. Why don't you tell them about what we talked about the other day, you know, so that you're, rather than you then dominating, you're using that same improvised interactive energy to solicit more value from the rest of the group. I had a client one time promoted somebody, and it was a big surprise to me, let alone others. And I said, what was behind that? She said, you know what it is, Paul? When she's in a meeting, she floats all other boats. She makes everybody else dig deeper, stretch more, you know, be better than what they are on their own. I thought, what a wonderful gift to give a team. And I think that's a great mindset for improvisers to have, so that they then can still be interactive and positive and inspiring, but through how they then, you know, rally the group rather than just their own individual contribution. But I think there's a lot around the workspace and the way you set your day up to keep your energy up. There's so many people now working back to back to back, particularly more senior people on meetings, and it doesn't feel fun. It's not as much fun as seeing faces and humans walking past you that automatically energize you. So are there anyone in the group that's already made some progress in that space, things they've intentionally done differently to shift the energy and compensate for the, you know, the reduction in the humanness of having people around you, and how you've translated that into your home environment?
I'm avoid, authenticate and use improvise, and I'm absolutely blown away with the possibilities that occur in an unprecedented circumstance. I think it's amazing. That's across everything. That's all, of course, relationships. So it just blows my mind how many things across, you know, all areas. That's family and work everywhere. And, you know, to me, it's a very stimulating time.
Thanks, Marie. Thank you. Yeah, well, isn't that a good way to look at it? There's incredible possibilities. That always excites the improviser. Anybody else?
I'm worried everyone else, Paul.
I found I've done that interactive role a little bit in the background in chat. So like I was on a call earlier with someone and I knew they had something to share, but they weren't sharing it. And so I was like, let the group know about this. That would be helpful for everyone else. So that there's a way to do that in the background too.
Beautiful. Great call out, Jen. Excellent. All right, guys, I am conscious of the time and I want to be respectful of everyone finishing on time. So let's move to the avoid improvised drive. So we've already had a few people comment on this already today, but the first one is around having a separate space. Remember, the avoid improvised drive is all about, you know, whatever they do diligently. They want the results to speak for themselves. So they take you feel like a more serious or diligent approach to things. They're often the people that separate fun from work. So in the same way, they need to separate work from home. There's that, you know, this idea of having everything sort of mishmash is not what works best for them. So we already heard Krista talk about that before. But here it's really important, you know, what Tanya was talking about, walking around the house and changing the space and changing the state from work to home. They're really important strategies to keep the avoid authenticator feeling like they still have a home, even though they also now work from home. Creating the quiet space, which again is partly about the space, and it might be about the time zones on how you do that when to help kids respect or understand that you need quiet time, or could be partners understanding that as well. And then I would call out in meetings, you know, when you need to process things, other people can't see you, they can't see that you're processing. There's a lot of people, I can only see four people on the screen right now at any one point in time. So I can't see what the bulk of the group is thinking and doing and, you know, reacting to. Whereas if you can see the face, you can get a sense that they're pondering something. So in order to not have people misinterpret your silence, you might want to call out, hey guys, I'm not disengaged or distracted. I'm just thinking of this is really challenging me, and I'm doing a lot of thinking right now. Maybe even share what you're thinking about. You don't have to give answers, just share what you're processing. Because normally the avoid improvise doesn't share until they've got some sort of outcome or something they've resolved in their mind to share that they feel is, you know, safe. So sharing that process is something you might need to think about doing so people don't, firstly, understand where you're at, and secondly, don't draw the wrong conclusion. And then what do you do to decompress in terms of pressure reduction? You know, could be exercise, that would be the common one, exercise, music, meditation. But there might even be people that you talk to or other things you do in order to change your state. Anyone got any examples here they'd like to talk to? Particularly for the way you maybe handle yourself in meetings. So people, if you need that thinking time and you're processing, how do you do that so you still feel safe but can contribute? That could be really valuable to understand.
I think that's really right. It's not so much in huge meetings because sometimes you have to just be able to do something that second. But when we're in smaller kind of, you know, functional teams or whatever, I've really learned to say, I'm thinking about how I can make that work with this other thing that's going on. Can I come back to you like later today or something like that? And it always lands really well. No one's like, no, Sarah, you must answer me now. No one's ever going to do that. So,
Good, Sarah. That's a great example.
Learning to say that is really important. And I guess one of the perks from working from home is what decompresses for me is to take a shower. So you can do that now.
That's good. That's good. They're the little things that can make a difference for people. And those of you with the same instinct probably understand that more than others. You know, you can really relate to the difference it makes to your energy and then how you show up. And, you know, it's all about being the best version of yourself that you can be, certainly at work, but you want to be able, in the past, no matter what sort of day you had, you still had a choice as to who walked through that door of an evening. When you put the key in and turn it, who's that family going to greet, you know, and you could make that conscious choice. Now you need to be more deliberate about that because they're watching you all day, or, you know, you don't have that same opportunity. So you've got to recreate that in order you can be your best self of an evening as well as through the day. So guys, we're at the end of the hour. So thank you so much for joining. I hope there's a lot of tips in here that just either have reminded you of things you need to do, help you stay on track, or just, you know, have called out some things that would be helpful to you to sort of go, actually, I hadn't thought about doing that. That would make a difference. And then, of course, we will send out both the recording as well as this deck so that if you want to share this with other people and help them work more effectively virtually as well, then you've got the tools to be able to do so. We have other webinars coming up each week from here to help people in how they're working. The one next week is about how to work together. So this one's all about you and how to be you at your best. Next week is about how to work with others in a virtual environment, so both of you are at your best and most effective. And we're sending the invites out for that now. So if that time works for you and you're interested, we look forward to seeing you on that call as well.
Those invites have already gone out, everyone. It's actually this week. It's US Thursday, Australian Friday. They've gone out, and we've already had a great response. We've got about 20 or 30 people registered. So if you haven't, please jump in and register. Love to see you.
Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great day or evening, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.